Vanessa, you're up next. You going to do the podium thing?
Oh, no, I'm going to stay seated.
There we go. Okay.
Because I'm wearing rather high heels.
But we can't see them if you stay seated there.
You will see me wobbling.
All right.
All right. This afternoon, after the lunchtime reading that we did at the Calgary Public Library, I stole away to write. And I made quite a show of, I'm going to write. I'm feeling inspired. And what I didn't admit was that I was writing the speech I'm about to give. No, I didn't forget. You see, being called upon to speak about anything I wanted had proven to be a rather intimidating prospect. And this has been a truly beautiful, productive, hectic whirlwind of a summer, laden with projects and engagements and exciting new challenges to keep me busy and happily procrastinating. But yesterday, at the steakhouse, with a parcel of wonderful creative people to celebrate the opening of this fine festival, I started to develop a sense of my own place in it. So I decided to speak about what it means to me to be here as a songwriter among authors. It's definitely a new experience for me, and it's exciting so far. So I sneaked away. I found myself a pitcher of iced lychee jasmine tea and sat and clickety-clacked frantically on my laptop in my small window of time to cobble together a few scraps of original thought, bang them into a halfway presentable shape after heating them in the fire of passionate urgency. I took a blacksmithing course this summer. I have profound respect for writers of fiction. It is, in some ways, the ultimate art form. To write fiction, as far as I understand it, is to create new forms, new realities, and new vantage points within the mental realm, and then encode them for transfer into the minds of others by strange telepathic magics. How do you do it? Because I've tried it, and I can't do it. My prose is rambling, digressive, incoherent, redundant, tangential, long-winded, circumlocutory, needlessly florid, overly descriptive, redundant, and altogether self-indulgent. But perhaps more to the point, I didn't really have any complete ideas. I had settings, I had characters, but not much for them to do other than to hang out in their well-imagined surroundings. So I played to my strengths. This is, junior high I'm talking about, just so you know. I figured out what I wanted to do quite young. But I did away with the need for story, and I turned to poetry and song. In song, we don't need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We have the freedom to come in somewhere in the middle. And then all we have to do is express that moment right there in the middle with all its smells and sounds and nagging doubts and exquisite pain in the best and most original way we can. And then we're done. And then we write another song. A song will tell you in no uncertain terms when it is done. It is done when you have said everything you need to say, and it all fits into the form that you have chosen. There is only one shape that will fit. We all learned this in kindergarten. A triangular hole will not accept a cylinder. When all the rhymes work, and none of them sound cheesy or forced, when the rhythm of the words is just right, and fits into your chosen metrical scheme without hiccups or awkward syllabic contrivances, when the words and the music form an indivisible entity, and it's beautiful, so that maybe it makes you stop and wonder how that sound just came out of you. That's when you can stick a fork in it, and it will come out clean. It's done. There's no question of changing a word here, a word there, maybe rewording this or that to make it all a little more clear, a little more concise, which is what I do with prose, which is why I was always down to the wire with every paper I ever wrote in university, because it pained me to have to declare it done, declare it worthy of submission. So my question to all of you prolific writers of published fiction is, how do you do it? How do you write and finish and publish a novel without niggling away at it for eternity? Is it the deadlines? Or do the forms you have chosen for your stories help give shape to your words and ideas the way my song forms do? There is a mythology around songwriting that the best songs are not written, but rather are found, plucked as it were like ripe fruits out of the ether. The well-known word troubadour, meaning poet-singer, comes from the Occitan verb trobar, meaning to find. I find this myth totally confirmed as an almost literal truth by my own experience. My work as a songwriter involves finding the right words, the right rhymes, the right structure, as though they already exist. And if it's not working perfectly, then it's not done. I haven't found it yet. It takes a certain measure of faith to write this way. It doesn't matter if my rhyming dictionary only lists 2 options for the rhyme that I need, and both of them are French. I know there's a rhyme there. It can be found. I've rhymed righteous with night just. Sunlight with done might. Wait, let me share that with you. Because it doesn't sound real, does it? No, I did it. Okay. You've ladies all in grace surpassed. Your eyes are ropes. They hold me fast. No telling how much time has passed. We all are stars tonight. Blazing on and on, could it be that dawns are done? Might memory or dream of sunlight interrupt our dance? Melting at our feet, let empty sky and lamplight stay while buildings fall and streets decay until I get my chance. Rhymes are just an example, of course. Not all lyrics in poetry have to rhyme, but there is a point at which they will gel and fit into a chosen form, and that's when you've found it. Finding a song, in my experience, often entails going out and looking for it. Earlier today, Kevin Anderson was telling me about how he wrote a chapter yesterday while walking, and that he does this often. It's his preferred method of composition, apparently.
This afternoon, too.
Oh, well, good for you. You've gotten more work done than me today. No, if I'm struggling with part of a song, if it's almost there but not quite working, I get up and I go for a walk. And it does the trick almost every time. And sometimes I wonder about what I must look like, walking along and singing to myself or muttering under my breath, with or without frustrated cursing, my eyes unseeing, cast onto some far horizon in an exotic land. I take my tape recorder with me if I'm setting out specifically to find a song, but I don't usually use it until the song is completely finished. Also, a lot of my best songs have come to me at very inconvenient times. And it's those situations which make it very worthwhile to cultivate memory. People often ask me if they're unfortunate enough to witness me in my writing state, why I don't carry a recorder with me at all times, why I do keep muttering it, why over and over just sing it into a recorder. My answer is that I write better without one. If a piece of the melody doesn't catch and I lose it, and it wasn't catchy enough, wasn't the right melody, and if I have a few lines of the lyrics in mind, I need to keep them in mind, because the rest of the song will grow out of them. This happens right in front of my eyes. The existing lines create grooves which suggest a larger shape, and once I have a shape, the rest of the song is poured into it like hot wax into a mold. This is a lot of I, me, my, isn't it? Ugh. Well, there's no turning back now. Thanks for listening. If walking doesn't work, I find a place to sit that is removed from my home and my workplace, both of which offer naught but distractions. Tea houses and bars work best for me. 2 weeks ago, I got some good writing done at the Kensington pub on a Saturday night. Everyone around me was partying and shouting and cutting loose, and I sat alone in the eye of the storm, staring at my martini, muttering and scribbling. I love the din. There's nothing like it. Silence is good, but too easily broken. When everyone is shouting over everyone, and I can't make out anyone's conversations, then you get the din, and the din is golden. It's like the wind in the trees. And I don't carry a notebook. I do a lot of writing on napkins. And this is by choice. The blank page is intimidating. It's negative space that is demanding to be filled. But a napkin is never considered that its destiny could ever be more than to have someone's mouth wiped on it. When you do creative work on a napkin, you've created something unique where before there was not but a napkin. It's like every napkin and every napkin holder in every restaurant. It's spontaneous and it's romantic. And I'd like to finish with a word of thanks. I'm very grateful to be here among writers and among readers who can appreciate what I bring to the discussion. As a writer, not simply an entertainer. For though I love the entertainment business, I love it so much that I'll wait as long as I need to for it to put that ring on my finger. It has always been about the words. And sadly, as a musician, I find a lot of my audience members are lulled by pretty sounds and don't choose to listen to the words. When I performed as part of the Thursday night reading, or last night's reading at the University Library, I was physically shocked at how silent and attentive the audience was. I didn't hear a whisper. It was incredible. I felt very lucky to be included in this wonderful celebration of the power of words. Thank you.
It's on? You can hear me?
Oh, it's on.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Randy McCharles for his kind invitation to me to participate at When Words Collide 2012. I want to thank Margaret Corrales for all of her support and Robert J. Sawyer for recommending me to the organizers. Thanks to the board, all of the very hardworking volunteers, and to Kim Grayson for satisfying my every whim. And I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, too. So by way of an introduction, I just want to let you know that I've been working in the Canadian book industry for about 14 years. I've been an independent bookseller, a book buyer for a national chain, and a publisher sales rep. Now I'm an editor, but I've never been, nor do I expect to be, a published writer. I just spent 2 transformative days with a writers group, though. Sure. I just spent 2 days with an amazing writers group full of generous, supportive, perceptive, and talented writers. And they have inspired me to start writing too, or at least trying to. Thanks. When I asked them what I should talk about in my keynote address, they told me that they wanted to know about the relative merits of self-publishing versus the more traditional route. So I'm going to dedicate this keynote address to my new friends, IFWITs, I think they call themselves, the members of the Imaginative Fiction Writers Association. Now, I think we all have something in common beyond our love of books, and that is that we've all, at some time or another, had an idealized vision of what a life in books might look like. I had a romanticized idea about what a life in books would be like, and it was largely informed by the movies of Woody Allen. I think a lot of aspiring writers have romantic notions about their chosen profession, too, so I'm going to do my best to disabuse you of those notions tonight. So that when it comes time to choose your own path, either a publication with a traditional publisher or a more self-directed route, you'll have realistic expectations of at least one of those. Now, the question that keeps me up at night is, given the rise of convenient and affordable self-publishing and the ease of producing ebooks, will the big multinational publishing behemoths become obsolete? Not if we have men like Jack Whyte. The answer to that is no, and that's not just blatant self-interest talking, nor wishful thinking. It's good business sense. If there's money to be made in the self-publishing game, you can bet that traditional publishers are going to be in on it. And in fact, they already are. Now, self-publishing developed out of a desire to circumvent the so-called gatekeepers of traditional publishing and bookselling. So it's kind of ironic that self-publishing has become a new revenue-generating sector for online booksellers like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Apple, and traditional publishers like Harper and Random and Penguin. So I've done a little bit of market research into this, and here are some of your options. On Amazon, self-publishers can access the Kindle digital text platform, uploading and selling their own Kindle ebooks within about 5 minutes to Kindle users in English, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. You can set your own price. You can sell in US dollars, pounds, or euros. And best of all, you get a really high royalty rate, about 70%. On Smashwords, a site that bills itself as the world's leading ebook distributor for indie authors, they offer a free service that helps users publish, distribute, and sell their books at multiple major ebook retailers. Authors can earn 85% net of copies sold through the Smashwords store, 60% net of sales through major retailers like the Apple iPad iBook store, Barnes & Noble, Sony, and Kobo. On Barnes & Noble, American self-publishers can access free software called Pubit and earn a royalty between 40 and 60%. Pubit is not an exclusive program, so users can sell their books elsewhere too. In its first 4 months, 11,000 independent authors signed up, publishing more than 65,000 ebooks. I'm not sure what their current numbers are, but that's a pretty auspicious beginning. Now, don't forget the traditional publishers. They're getting in on the game too. In March 2011, HarperCollins introduced a new digital imprint called Avon Impulse, which, when you go to their site, triggers a submission form for potential romance authors. Avon Impulse is offering authors 25% of profits on the first 10,000 copies of each self-published ebook and 50% on copies after that. In May 2011, Penguin US announced the launch of Book Country, a free online writing community and publishing services venture. We say it offers writers a place to upload new works and receive feedback and criticism from a community of writers and readers. But really, it's a place for Penguin editors to trawl for new talent. And again, like the HarperCollins initiative, this community is focused on supporting writers of genre fiction, from romance, fantasy, science fiction, and thrillers to hybrid genres like paranormal romance and steampunk, in an effort to discover and nurture writers of sometimes hard to categorize genre fiction. Now, this site is the brainchild of Molly Barton. She's a renowned editor of genre fiction who often encountered writing that she liked but didn't think that she could sell. She says that Book Country offers unpublished writers a chance to prove us wrong when they're rejected. They can show us that there's an audience for their work. But the big news at Penguin is that 3 weeks ago, in a bid to take a leading position in the growing self-publishing market, Penguin acquired the self-publishing platform Author Solutions. Author Solutions has 150,000 authors who have published 190,000 books. By comparison, competitor Smashwords claims to have published approximately 140,000 titles by about 40,000 authors. Self-publishing platforms have been in a price and services arms race to attract more authors. In fact, Author Solutions had a promotion where it offered authors 100% royalties on books published and distributed through the site, making its primary service free for many of its customers. The strategy was to sell authors marketing, editorial, and other premium services, so I'll be interested to see how long that lasts. Interestingly enough, neither Avon Impulse nor Book Country were the first online writing communities to be launched by a major book publisher. iPublish, a failed online writing community and digital publishing venture, was launched by Warner Books president Larry Kirschbaum way back in 2000. While iPublish was a pioneering venture anticipating many of the services offered by Avon Impulse and Book Country, it was a bit ahead of its time and was forced to close in late 2001 with mounting financial losses. But as we all know, it's a different time and a different market for ebooks and digital publishing now. That market has exploded. I haven't seen current numbers about the rise of ebooks in Canada for this year, but here's what we do know. In 2010, Canadian publishers valued the ebook market at around $4 million. In 2011, sales doubled to more than $10 million. In the U.S., publishers' sales of ebooks more than doubled in 2011, which means that the digital book is now the dominant single format within the trade sector's adult fiction category, representing 30% of all adult fiction book titles. That's an extraordinary figure. Clearly, the market now supports a number of publishing services ventures that develop and distribute self-published ebooks. And traditional publishers are now participating in the self-publishing revolution by buying up the competition and creating online communities for independent writers. Writers who have struggled to find an agent or land a deal now have other avenues to get the attention of those same agents and editors. If they can show publishers that they've connected with their online readership and have a self-published track record that shows big sales, publishers are going to leap at the chance to publish them. And these authors will have a lot more leverage to secure a lucrative deal than a debut author would. It might be useful to think of self-publishing as a step towards traditional publishing rather than the alternative or binary opposite. But frankly, if you're a big enough success in the self-publishing game, you don't have to try and catch the attention of an agent or an editor. They already know about you. Editors and agents are trawling self-published bestseller lists looking for the next big thing. 50 Shades of Grey, anyone? The New York Times, after months of refusing to include self-published titles on their ebook bestseller list, finally relented this year. And guess what? 4 self-published authors had a total of 7 novels on the New York Times ebook bestseller list last weekend. The highest-ranking self-published author is Colleen Hoover, whose ebook Slammed, touted as a girl falls in love with a neighbor who enjoys slam poetry, but they encounter obstacles, comes in 8th place, ahead of ebooks by James Patterson, who topped Forbes' list of the highest-paid authors in the world just yesterday, and Karen Slaughter. Hoover self-published Slammed 7 months ago and just signed a traditional book deal with Simon & Schuster. But you may ask, why jump through that extra hoop if you've already self-published? And if you're an established best-selling author, please don't listen to this, Jack, why would you re-sign with a publishing house when you could self-publish and earn a much higher royalty rate?
Thinking about it.
I want to introduce 2 very interesting case studies at this point. They offer 2 answers to that question. Now, in the ebook universe, these case studies seem woefully out of date. They're from May 2011. And for that, I apologize. But they're still the best case studies to evaluate the merits of traditional publishing and self-publishing. So let's take the case of Amanda Hocking first. She's the young, successful, self-published author of several series of paranormal novels. She self-published 8 full-length novels and 1 novella in a 2-year period and sold over 1 million ebooks. She accepted a $2 million offer from St. Martin's Press to publish 4 new novels. She opted for the traditional route after successfully and lucratively self-publishing. She earned somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million off her self-published ebooks. Amanda says that she decided to sell her rights to a traditional publisher so that she could focus on her writing instead of the full-time business of self-publishing. When she was her own publisher, listen up, she hired various freelance editors to copy edit her manuscripts, but she did the cover designs herself, as well as her own marketing, publicity, and accounting. She decided she needed more time to write. When asked what kind of control she retained in her deal with St. Martin's, whether she had final approval over titles, covers, pricing, and publication dates, she said that she wasn't fighting for control of those things. She just wanted to ensure that her traditionally published ebooks would be priced similarly to those of her self-published ebooks. She didn't want to alienate her readership. Well, if you check her out on Amazon, you'll see self-published ebooks priced at 99 cents, her books, and the St. Martin's editions at $12. So Amanda lost that battle. A 99-cent ebook is definitely outside the most traditional publishers' comfort zones. They're very sensitive to the perceived value of ebooks. They don't want books devalued, And I should think that writers would want to protect the perceived value of their colossal efforts as well. But let's see what Amanda Hocking gets. She gets a $2 million advance against her royalties up front, and the hard copy sales that she hasn't been able to secure on her own. Her self-published print sales are only at about 10,000 copies. By moving away from solely an e-publishing and print-on-demand model, she now has distribution via physical retailers like Walmart, Costco, Indigo, independent booksellers, and airport bookstores. This means royalties on those hard copies, as well as the less tangible benefits of prestige associated with mainstream publishing. But what Amanda Hocking is really counting on is that the wider distribution of her hard copy books will fuel her ebook sales. She believes that the wider distribution of print copies and the extensive reach of her publisher's marketing and publicity campaigns will increase her self-published ebook sales, where she earns a higher royalty, and put more money in her pocket. Now, the second case study that I want to raise is that of Barry Eisler. He's a New York Times bestselling author of 8 thrillers, 6 published by Putnam, 2 by Ballantine. Now, he's not sure about the number of copies he's sold in all formats, including hardcover, paperback, and digital, but he's been translated into 20 different languages. He said publicly that his advances for those books have been 6 and 7 figures. His covers and the marketing and publicity campaigns for his books have always been handled by his publishers, but he's gone on the record to say, though, that he's been disappointed more than once by his publisher's packaging decisions, which means he hates his covers. And that he's wanted for a long time, to be fully in charge of his own cover design, publicity, and marketing. So last March, Barry Eisler turned down a $500,000 book deal from St. Martin's Press to publish his next 2 books, and publicly declared his intention to self-publish. What were his reasons? Well, he already has a huge and loyal fan base. He has wide distribution of his print books, but the royalty rate he's getting on them isn't nearly as good as if he published them himself. He's calculated that he can make more money just on self-published ebooks than he can on a mix of paper and digital with a traditional publisher. He's already got the platform. He just wants to take full control of his publications and their profit-making potential. He's already made a lot of money from his print books, so he doesn't really need the advance that St. Martin's offered him. So, what can we learn from these 2 case studies? That the grass is always greener? Not quite. Amanda and Barry agree on this. Having a presence in bookstores feeds your ebook sales, and having inexpensive ebooks feeds your print sales. Now, to have a real presence in bookstores, traditional publishing is the way to go. But self-publishing your ebooks allows you to set your own prices and retain most of the profit. These 2 writers have figured out for themselves how to get the best of both worlds, but they came at it from opposite directions. Now, this might lead some of you to think that you should sell the hardcover and paperback rights to a publisher and keep the ebook rights to yourself. Good luck with that. Unfortunately for writers, publishers are increasingly adamant that they acquire ebook rights alongside the print ones. They know where the growth is too, and they want in on the action. So this is a battle that's being waged in contract negotiations between agents and publishers across the world, and I honestly don't know how it's going to be resolved. We'll have to wait and see when the dust settles. And now you all knew this was coming. Here's my pitch for the traditional route. When you're published by a traditional house, you reap the benefits of a cash advance against future royalties. You have access to the most experienced editors, designers, and publicists in the industry. You reap the benefits of their strong and long-standing relationships with media outlets, reviewers, buyers, and booksellers. After all, a traditional publisher can get books into the channels that most self-published authors can't. National chains like Indigo, Walmart, Costco, Shoppers Drug Mart. Regional chains like Overweighty, McNally Robinson, Book City, Nicholas Hoare. And the greatest booksellers of all, the independents, like the Century Box. And finally, you reap the benefit of being published by and associated with a publisher that agents, retailers, and even readers will be more inclined to trust and respect. Whether we like it or not, Publishers are arbitrators of literary quality and taste, and hopefully that will never be obsolete. Thank you.